Registration for the 2023 AFCA convention is now open. Join us as AFCA returns to the Queen City. Mark your calendars for January 8th through the 10th, 2023 in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you are attending the convention, dues, fees, and ticket requests not received by December 10th will be processed on-site at a higher convention fee and ticket price. For more information, visit afca.com.
This week on Inside the Headset, we are featuring Jameson Croall, the head coach at the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Coach Croall explains the unique opportunity coaching at a service academy, his coaching path, and some key takeaways from his involvement with the AFCA. Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Croall.
Coach, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. I really appreciate you having me on.
No doubt, man. Well, I appreciate you making time. I know it's always tough to find 15 minutes as a ball coach and spend time with us. That means a lot to us. Now, we were kind of chatting right before we start recording this, and so I kind of we actually were chatting for everybody listening, and I was like, man, stop. We should record this. This is some pretty good stuff. And I was telling Coach that I spent time at the United States Military Academy under our current executive director, Todd Berry, as a player. I was there for 1 year, so I had some experience in the service academies across the country, and I was asking him what are some of the differences that you see from a Army, Air Force, Navy, the FBS programs versus where he's at, and he kind of broke it down. I thought it was super interesting. So, Coach, just kind of talk a little bit about some of the slight differences that you might see between the academies.
Yeah, so the biggest thing I think is we're a federal academy that a lot of people don't know about, and really the biggest difference is probably on the back end, where when our guys graduate, they still get the free education that every other academy gets. Our service commitment, though, is different. We can serve into any branch of active duty, or choose to go into a private industry, which is the maritime industry, or to be a merchant marine. Which is a term that's not used as much anymore. But in the maritime industry, you can work on a drill ship in the Gulf of Mexico, a cruise ship. You can be on a container ship that brings all the stuff from Amazon and all that stuff over. So there's a lot of money to be had in that industry because it's the job security is very good until they come up with a plane that can carry 100,000 tons of cargo at once. Our jobs are pretty secure. So, and then as far as school's concerned, we operate very similarly, but we're probably, the least military and the most academic as far as how we proceed on campus. And that's really because our guys get on a ship for about 300 days throughout their time on campus. So we then cram our 4-year bachelor's degree into 3 years of studying on campus. So, it's a really crammed school year from July all the way to June. Which is a little different than most schools. So
absolutely. Now, at some point, when I was at West Point, I believe after our sophomore years, as most people look at it, after our sophomore year, we had to sign a commitment that we would finish our time there at West Point, and then we would serve in the military for 5 more years, and then somewhere in that process, you kind of ended up in a branch within the Army. Blah blah blah. Yeah. What do you have a time commitment? There, or is there, what is that time commitment if you do?
Yeah, so we don't have that official. I think it is the first day of your sophomore year, your third class year at the other academies. For us, we don't have one of those official days. Okay. That they have to do that, but we do have a service commitment. So you either have to serve 5 years in the military or 5 years in the maritime industry. Okay. So they keep of what jobs you take and things like that, but the nice thing about the maritime industry is it's private, so you can, nobody stations you anywhere or tells you where to live. You can get a job, you can move jobs, all that good stuff. So there is a service commitment, and then if you go into the private industry, you have a Navy Reserve commitment. Okay. You have to serve in the Navy Reserve for 8 years. It's built for a merchant marine officer, so it's really never say never, and you never know what could happen. But for the most part, it's a non-deployable unit. Because a huge part of the maritime industry is serving the military bases around the world, right? So buying it with food, goods, ammo, and all that kind of stuff. That all comes off on merchant vessels as well. That's not coming from, a military vessel. So they took us off those merchant vessels. Then all of a sudden, there's nobody to supply the Navy bases. So we really don't get deployed in that reserve. But we have plenty of guys that choose to go active and are flying jets for the Navy or Navy SEALs or Army Rangers. So yeah, we do have a commitment. It's just we have a little bit of flexibility in that.
That's that's awesome in comparison, and not to other academies or anything like that. I don't mean to slander their option, but it seems to be a lot of different options that you can go. It's pretty linear in terms of the other service academies. You just go serve for 5 years, and it's not a ton of options as far as that.
Maury, I think you hit it kind of on the head. I think the biggest advantage is, number one, you don't have to make the decision at 18,
right?
And let's at the end of the day, if you choose a service academy, thank God for you. We appreciate you.
Right.
You can't really make a bad choice. So nobody's bashing the other academies in any way, shape, or form. But I truly think if you put school X and school Y and you start listing out the opportunities and options in those schools, you're going to pick our school over a couple of those others.
Right.
And the name recognition is still something we have to deal with and in the recruiting process and all those kinds of things. But, I really do think we stack up. It's just we're a lot lesser known. We're a lot smaller. We don't have that lineage and tradition, that goes back 100 years. Ours only goes back 75.
Right. Yeah, slowly inching towards that 100 years. Now, so obviously, if you're a collegiate coach, you end up at all these different universities at some point in time in your career, and you better find a way to strategize and know about your university or college or your academy in your instance. And so, what's your approach when you go into a high school? Like, are you looking for kids that already have military backgrounds? When you start talking about some of this stuff, are you prepared for some of the guys to say, I'm not interested? What's been y'all's approach that's led to your success over time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we do is, there's military backgrounds without a doubt.
Right.
There's people who look at and seek out the academies. But really, I think where we've had our most success and the majority of the guys that we've gotten into the program are just really smart kids that have the grades, they have the academics. They may have never considered a service academy. But what they can do is they have the foresight to look down the road and understand kind of what this opportunity provides. And obviously, hopefully we do a decent job of showing them the light as far as, what this thing can provide moving forward for you. We really look at it as fast forward in your life 10 years, and I know a lot of people talk about 4 for 40 and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, when you come out of school with no debt and you have an opportunity to make anywhere from 80 to 100 grand a year in the maritime industry, our guys are, they buy cars right out of college. They buy houses at 25, 26. And that's not normal nowadays.
Yeah.
Most buying them at 35 now, unfortunately. So it really is fast forward in your life and putting yourself in a position where, not everybody's going to be in the military for their career or be on a ship for the rest of their life. Really what our guys do is at 28, 29, 30, they really start to transition and they've probably planned, we got a lot of planners and engineers and smart guys and all that kind of stuff. They've probably been planning since 24, what's my exit out of the maritime industry or what's my exit out of the military and where am I going to go into? So that's really what we get a lot of is bright kids that understand that this is going to provide them, hopefully with some good recruiting and an opportunity to play good football. But this is going to provide them a chance to live a life that's different than most people.
Right. Well, yeah, that's awesome, Coach. I appreciate you kind of sharing that. That wasn't planned until we started our dialogue before the podcast started. But now to transition a little bit more into your your coaching history and things like that. You just took over the interim head coaching duties this past November. After a decade of being an OC there. Is this something you were striving for? I kind of know you over the last couple of years, so I know you're just a fantastic ball coach, very genuine. But deep down on all those guys, you kind of have some of those dreams and aspirations. Is this in line with what you've been working for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I appreciate the compliment, by the way. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is this probably wasn't my initial plan coming down here. I remember being in the car coming down to New York. Never been to New York. Now I'm moving down and living there. And I said 3 to 5 years. I said 3 to 5 years. I'll transition into somewhere else. And I don't know, be Nick Saban in 10, right?
Right.
Right. We all kind of have that in our brain when we're 22. And then, I got some really good advice. We had some challenging years my first 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think year 3 we were 2-8, and we lost 7 straight. And that's not something I think I wish on anybody. But, in that time, our former head coach, not Coach 2, before him, Charlie Pravada, was still in an admissions liaison role around here. And he grabbed me and pulled me to the side. And, I'm sure you could tell it was a tough season. And he said, listen, I know this wasn't the easiest year. I know this, this is a really great place to be, which I never disputed. Right. But you have a year like that, you start to kind of look out the window and go, oh, yeah. Well, there's got to be a place where it's easier, Right. And then, potentially worrying about getting fired and things like that. But, he grabbed me and he said, the most important job is the one you got, and not to be looking out the window too much, and just do a really good job at the job you have and see what happens. Right. And that's kind of what's driven me probably since then, the last 7-8 years, just do a really good job. And if an opportunity outside of the academy presents itself, then great. If I want to go seek something out, if I feel like it's a great opportunity, then I would have. But at the end of the day, there was nothing when I started to weigh the options, there was nothing that would pull me out. I really love being at this place. So no, when I came down here, this wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
And then 3 years ago when, Coach Chu kind of started hinting at leaving and told me he would support me for the head job, whenever he decides to make it happen, then it really became a real thing. That's kind of where I've been at. So it's been the goal for the last 3 or 4 years, probably, maybe 5. But no, coming down here 5-10 years ago,
Yeah, that wasn't on the docket. Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, probably the coolest thing is, I won't say we've all been there before. We're all in different stages of our career, but definitely, I remember my moments in some of those tougher places or in those tougher situations where it was like, man, I know some greener pastures out there, and it's a little bit easy to slide on football, scoop, and all those other things. But you stayed the course. Yeah. Kind of believed in your system, and and believed in the place, and just worried about what focused on where your feet were. And it's going to kind of transition here to offense. And so I'm going to start this off with a question here for you. We're not looking at the score. If you get that little sheet they hand you there after the game with all the stats on it, what is the first metrics that you're looking at? That's just not the final score.
That's a great question. It's always the same thing: 3rd down conversion, then 4th down conversion. Okay. Oh, for us, if we're converting on 3rd down, or we got a 4th and 1, and that 4th down conversion is a high percentage, that means we probably had success in one game. Okay. Because offense is built to not to get huge plays all the time. Consistently we want to get 4 yards on each clip. So that if we can convert on 3rd down and then 4th down when we go for it, which hopefully will be a lot because it will be in a lot of 4th and shorts, we're going to be pretty good.
What's that kind of that magic number for you? I mean, obviously everybody wants 100% conversion on all those situations, but reality, you walk away and you say, "Hey, man, 75% conversion rate." I mean, what's that number for you?
Yeah, I mean, we really want to be 100 on 4th down because it should be 4th and 2, right? And obviously, but we've been pretty close over the last years here. And then 3rd down, it's more like you said, 75%. And again, it's maybe a higher percentage number than most people would say, but we're not in a lot, if we're in a lot of 3rd and 7s and, 4th and 4s, we're not doing what we do well. Yeah. So it should be a higher number for an option team and for us,
Yeah, and so I asked you that question in that way. When I first took this role here, I was finding myself with a ton of time, obviously. Went from an 18-hour-a-day job to, to a regular desk job. I was always looking for something to do, and
how is that? I bet that's nice.
Yeah, no, it has its perks, but fall is always a little tough for me. But no, no.
Sure.
But, I was sitting down, I was going through. I just took a bunch of the FBS programs. I can't remember how I ended up breaking this deal down, but I was looking just at all the different metrics, and I was finding who were the top teams and what was the correlation. How far off was it from being a top, team at the FBS level in terms of your record or your rankings, things like that, right? And third down conversion was actually fairly high. Yards per play was a very high metric. A lot of correlation there. And one of the things that, if you go and ask, and I say an average Joe, somebody that knows ball but not enough, not an actual coach or just somebody that's kind of run the game, that time of possession is always something that kind of comes up. And you guys do a tremendous job in time of possession. Is that something that's important to you? Are you looking at that? Or do you not really care what that number is?
I don't. I hope I don't get a bunch of gasps from the option community. The time of possession for us is not as big a factor. We've really transitioned into an up-tempo version of the offense.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you do a freeze frame, before the snap, we're going to look like every other option team. We're going to be in the same formation. If you do a freeze frame, after the snap, post snap, it's going to look the same. We're going to be in one of the base plays that just about everybody else runs. Where we're different is between plays. We're trying to get that ball snapped as quick as we can. We do run quite a bit formationally, which we try to put pressure on teams, via formation as well, to create that numbers advantage. But really the tempo and condition, and really what it boils down to is it fits our academy. The other academies, I don't want to speak for them, but I think they have some waivers and things like that. We don't. We have to pass a PRT 3 times a year with our guys. They got to run a mile and a half in 12 minutes. They got to be under 22% body fat. So we're never going to have 300-pound offensive linemen, 280-pound offensive linemen. We're going to have 250, 260. So instead of complaining about that or using it as an excuse, we use it to our advantage, and we try to really condition ourselves to be the best conditioned team in the country. And I think we're pretty close. I'm sure there's some teams that are in really good shape as well. But if you look over the past 3, 4, 5 years since we've really transitioned into the up tempo, we've averaged this year. We were a little bit more explosive, so we only averaged 77 plays a game. The last 3 before that, we were at like 80, anywhere from 86 to 88.
Oh wow!
So that's because we really were truly getting 4 yards at a clip pretty much every time.
Yeah.
And really, if you look, it wears guys out in the fourth. It wears other teams out in the fourth quarter, and it's become where we lack size and strength and some of that physicality probably that some other people have. We then make up for in the back end of games in that second half and fourth quarter. So
no doubt, yeah, I've had the opportunity to kind of either coach or play against. Super interesting. I transferred from Army, ended up playing Army my senior year as a player. And it was and played Georgia Southern as a coach. It was always deflating, you get a drive going on offense. I'm an offensive guy, and then all of a sudden you just don't know when you're gonna get the ball back. When you play some of these option guys that do the 4, and they're getting just enough to get a first down every play, and man, it really throws you out of sync, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm curious of where you kind of got that offensive philosophy and with your longevity there. How have you developed it over the course of the years?
Yeah, we started. I came from Springfield College. They're also in Division III. They're in our conference. They've been running option for I don't know 30 years since the 80s, so 40 years now. They've so that's the foundation of my knowledge, and so I really got a good understanding of the basics and everything. I was able to coach in every position when I was there, so I really feel for kind of everything, which has helped me be a really good, offensive coordinator and well-versed, I should say, and not just the quarterback's guy or an O-line guy. And then really what happened was I used to kind of look at, are we running enough option? Are we running enough, whatever, inside veer or outside veer? Whatever the play was, right? So am I, would Paul Johnson say, yeah, you're an option guy? That's kind of how I looked at things for that first, insecurity, right? Those first couple of years. And when I finally got rid of that, probably, I don't know, year 3 or 4 and just really focused on our kids and our program. And then the addition of Coach Kickle, who was our quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator. We really each year just kind of honed some different things. And first it was the tempo, then it was the ability to throw the ball a little bit more efficiently and effectively. And if you look over the things I would have killed for a rushing title the first year or 2, or 3.
Yeah.
And now this year we got it, and I don't really care that much about it.
Right.
And I don't mean we don't care about it.
No, I know what you mean.
We have we place a lot more. We were 7th in total offense. We were 8th in scoring offense, and that's stuff that there's not many option teams that finish top 10 in total offense.
Right.
So it means we're throwing the ball a little bit more effectively, and we're making it a part of our game plan. It's not okay, hey, they're leaving them wide open, or or we're down by 20, so we got to throw now.
Right.
Part of the game plan always. So that's kind of how we've evolved, and not to say that we're doing it better than anybody else. It's just the right way for our kids, and we'll continue to try to change that based on personnel and based on who's playing quarterback and who's playing O-line and all those good things.
So let me ask you this question. It's a little bit more fun than anything. It's a bye week. It's Saturday. You're at the house. What game are you watching? Well, who are you trying to see? Is there any offense that you're just looking to look at, or are you just watching ball in general?
Oh, it's tough. I want to watch every game I can because I'm still a fan at heart.
Yeah.
I'm watching Army and Navy.
Okay.
I'm streaming Citadel on the. I probably got 3 games going.
Right.
On a week, and I'm watching Army or Navy, and then I'm watching Citadel and seeing what they're doing because we'll steal it. We're not ashamed. If you got a formation, you got a motion, you got something you're doing that we haven't done before, we're gonna steal it. So. And then I'm a fan of, it's the service academy. I want to see them be successful. And
absolutely.
I've been close with those guys down at Citadel, as well. So, always rooting for those guys as well. So it's always option. If we can
some option ball going on.
Yeah. Whoever's running option that's on TV, we're going to be watching.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, we talked a little bit about the uniqueness of recruiting at a place like, the service academies and specifically where you guys are at. What is some of the rewarding parts of coaching this type of kid? Because they're a little different, right? They've a lot more mature in terms of taking on opportunity that is far more beyond those 4 years. All right, this opportunity when you walk in there, this is a 8 to 10 year commitment, if not longer. What's been some rewarding things coaching this type of athlete?
That's tough. The most rewarding time of year is this time of year for us. This place is a grind, right? It's that simple, right? Like you coaches talk about, embrace the suck and embrace the grind and all that stuff. That's our entire academic career, not just football season, right? Not just a workout. These guys get here and we start INDOC July 8th. We start school July 23rd. We graduate June 18th, right? Our seniors just walked into the Coast Guard license exam, which is 8 tests over 4 days. That's if they don't pass, they don't graduate. So to get, and then not to mention waking up at 6, putting a uniform on, all those kinds of things. So this time of year when we get to see our seniors, reap the benefits, that sigh of relief when they graduate, and then them looking towards the future, like going, oh, now I got the world by the whats, and I'm going to make money and have a job and
right.
and do all those kinds of things, and if serving their country is what they choose, then they get to do that as well, right? But the biggest advantage is they get to make that decision at 22, 21, right? Not at 17 or 18. So if they decide to go into the military, it's because they really want to be there, right? Which is a little bit unique to our academy. So this is the most rewarding time, and this is it's inspiring. It's why I'm here, because when you see these kids get through 4 years, and it's not easy, and become the leaders that that they're capable of being, and for us not screwing them up, they come in as pretty good kids, and hopefully they go out a little bit better. it's that this time of year, I don't know if I answered your question exactly.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. No, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Right? Yeah,
this time of year is really where we're kind of soaking it in.
Yeah,
so.
No doubt, man. Well, I honestly didn't realize the graduation was that late for you guys. I was assuming you were, they graduated late May or early June. But no, that's what it's all about. I mean, they walk in there, and that's the light at the end of the tunnel for those guys, and they get to play some ball along the way. But there's definitely some challenging moments academically, and with the test requirements and all these different requirements they have beyond the academic setting. Now. Talking about a little bit your role on the staff, not just this year, but over the years, you had to wear a lot of hats. You coaching at a program of that size, you just end up having to do multiple things. Just talk a little bit about some of the different roles that you've had over the years, and why it's important to be a part of the overall community, and how this maybe helped you leverage yourself into the interim head coaching role that you're in now.
Yeah, that's So a loaded question. So, I mean, I've done a million things in my 10 years.
Yeah.
Weight room management, and I oversaw the installation of a new weight room and the purchasing, which if you've ever purchased for the federal government, it's not the easiest process. So, that was one thing I did. I was chair of the curriculum committee on campus. I'm on the diversity and inclusion committee. I coach women's volleyball this year for their non-traditional season because no head coach or assistant coach. So, but I think the most important thing is, why we do that stuff. And really, Stu, our head coach who's stepping down he's done that since I've been here and prior to, and now our assistants are doing that as well. It's really, you can't be successful here as a player, right? You can't just be a football player, right? You have to buy into the regiment. You have to succeed academically. You can't just come and skip class and be a mess up in the regiment. You have to buy into everything, right? And that's the entirety of our freshman year is trying to get them to understand we're not cutting corners in the regiment. We're not cutting corners in the classroom because that translates to the football field here, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, we're linked in every way, shape, or form to our overall success. So we need to do that as coaches. So we're doing it so our kids see that we're involved in the academic side. We're involved in the regimental side. We show up to command inspection. We're trying to change the culture on campus, or improve things for the better and leave them better than we found them. And, it becomes a lot easier for us to stand in front of them, tell them they got to do the right thing always, when we're doing it too.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, probably not the best for my well-being or my personal time to coach women's volleyball, from 5 to 7, in the off season while we're recruiting and doing all that kind of stuff. But you got to be able to back up the talk as well. So
no doubt,
it's important. And we're a small school, small campus, it's a community. So I'm not just doing it to show them. I'm doing it because I care about this place.
Yeah.
And we all do. We all care about it. That's why we take on more than we probably should.
Well, that definitely, goes a long way for where you're at and also for yourself, just personally, and your growth. But I do have to just dive in a little bit more on the volleyball deal. So, what was that about? Like, I mean, you coached them. I mean, how did you know what to do? Where'd you go to get some resources, all that good stuff?
So I'm a PE guy, right?
Okay.
Springfield College, they're a pretty well-known PE program, and there's coaches in every profession, right? In every sport, really. So I played with somebody who I still occasionally, touch base with. So I reached out to her. She's the head coach at George Mason, and I said, hey, trying to help these girls out. What do you got for me? I'm still a coach, so I can administer, right? You teach me a drill, I can coach it. Now, whether I'm evaluating the technique and, really developing their skills, I don't know. But it was really this place is tough. If you're a varsity athlete and, you came here in part to compete and be a part of an athletics program, and then your head coach takes off and there's no assistant coach, and, the government hiring process takes 8 months, and, for them to just not have a non-traditional season, not to be able to get out there and reserve the gym and
right.
Run through drills and try to get better, is tough. And it was fun for me. It's a good experience to be able to coach a different type of athlete, a different sport. But they were great. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, hats off to you for stepping in there and putting your best foot forward and giving those young ladies an opportunity. That's awesome.
I don't know if they'd have me back. I had them diving on. There. So
as long as you didn't put them in the 3-point stance, I don't think that is a crossover skill.
No board drills.
No board drills, Oklahoma or anything like that. Now, before I let you go, man, I do want to say you've definitely taken opportunities to give back to the AFCA, and I'm always appreciative of that. I know before I was fully into this director of education role, you were part of the under 30 program back in 2017, and it was right before I took over the program, so I hadn't had that much of an opportunity to kind of build that relationship with you as I have with some of the other people. But man, if I call or I email, you're the first one to respond, and you always got something to give back. So I'm super appreciative of that. But that probably speaks a little bit on your experience, with the AFCA and the under 30 program. What area of growth have you seen in yourself over the last 5 years? Since you've partaken in that program, and I know it might not reshaped everything for you, but what are some of the things that you kind of took away from it?
Yeah, no, I think it's probably the harder question you ask, because I think as coaches, we're constantly trying to develop ourselves, right, and constantly focusing on some of the things we're not doing well. At least I hope. At least that's how I've operated. So a lot of those things, I hope I incorporated a bunch of them. I mean, there was you had Coach Cutcliffe, Coach Candle, you had Rocky Long from San Diego State. Derek Vandermeer from, at the time I think he was at Austin P, and now he's the COO of Arizona Wildcats. So I had some big time people kind of imparting their wisdom. But, I think right now I'm still drawing on it, right, as I transition into this role.
Yeah.
I remember there was a family and football panel, and there was 4 people on it. And I just remember it was Coach Blake Anderson, who's at Utah State now. At the time, he was at Arkansas State.
Yeah.
And I think Coach Wood from Salisbury, Coach Sherman Wood. So I might be missing, I might be combining a couple of the presentations. It's been 5 years.
Yeah.
But I just remember them speaking at length about creating a family environment on campus, creating a family environment in your program and in your staff, right? Having moments outside of the office, right? We spend a lot of time together, right? If we don't have sometimes we're out of here not talking about, and we probably end up talking about football while we're bowling or having dinner with our wives and significant others and things like that. And how important it was for their programs and how it built. If you look at Sherman Wood, I think he's had some assistants for 20, 30 years, and at a place like we're at, that's what I hope. I hope that we have that in the future, because consistency here is really important. And Coach Anderson, same thing. I felt the genuineness of building that environment. And I think COVID taught us some things that, we don't need to be in the office always, right? So we can be home for dinner on Sunday and still get some work done after dinner. And, we can take off on a Friday in the off season and still get some recruiting done and some Zoom calls or whatever it may be, and at least get a little bit more family time for a long weekend. So, both building that family culture on campus here and in our office, but also some time away from here as well.
No doubt, man. Well, you hit on it. I think that was definitely some silver lining from COVID. I love to see the amount of coaches that have adapted slightly. I mean, it doesn't change the whole game, but just finding moments to where they can be a little bit more virtual or distance and allow for a little more family time and things like that. So, anyways, Coach, I appreciate you hopping on. Before I let you go, I know you're super active on social media. Post some great stuff on Twitter. If you don't mind, just laying your Twitter account out there so people can give you a follow, ask you questions, keep up with your journey.
Yes, sir. It's at Coach Croall. Pretty simple. My name's right there on the screen, I think, unless you guys edit that out. But it is Croall.
Awesome.
Coach Croall.
And we'll make sure to link that into the show notes, so it's easy to click and find if they can't follow those instructions. But anyways, Coach, thanks so much for hopping on with us, and look forward to see you in Charlotte in 2023.
I'll be there. You know it.
I know you will be, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Mario. Best of luck.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset. If you heard anything on this episode that you would like to learn more information about, head over to afcapodcast.com, where where you can find every episode and all of the corresponding show notes. While you're there, take a second to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the show, please let us know by sending an email to podcast@afca.com. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Inside the Headset and tag it when you share each episode. You can stay up to date with all things AFCA by following the @WeAreAFCA Twitter account. Every episode of Inside the Headset can also be found on your favorite audio streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you are not currently a member of the AFCA, be sure to find us online at afca.com and apply to join over 10,000 NFL, college, and high school coaches from around the country who are striving to be the best they can be. With an AFCA membership, you gain invaluable access to the annual AFCA convention, the bi-monthly magazine, and the new and improved digital library, which contains thousands of videos and articles contributed by hundreds of current and former football coaches. You can also visit afcainsider.com to sign up for our free weekly email newsletter on the right-hand side of the screen. It comes out every Tuesday at lunch and is filled with great articles and stories written by many of the same coaches you hear on the podcast. It's geared to help you become a better coach tomorrow than you are today. Be sure to connect with me on Twitter at Coach Mario Price, and remember, the AFCA is not just an annual convention. It is an association that continually promotes education, guidance, and networking. But it is also so much more than that. The AFCA is about celebrating the past and educating the future. It is about developing great coaches who will produce great teams and even better people. So invest in your skill set and impact today by engaging with the AFCA.